What's up, YouTube? This is your boy John from the Jersey Shore, and I am back with you today to give you my review of the 1985 film A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Freddy's Revenge was written by David Chaskin. It was directed by Jack Shoulder, and it stars Mark Patton, Kim Myers, and Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. So this movie begins with a bus driver going and dropping off a bunch of high school kids. He's making his stops, he's doing his rounds, and when he gets down to there being only 2 girls and 1 guy left on the bus, he goes and starts driving off the road. Eventually, these kids they're screaming at the bus driver, and he gets up and he starts walking towards them, and the bus driver is actually Freddy Krueger. When they made this movie, nobody really knew who Robert Englund was yet. Everybody in the world knows who he is now, but I thought it was pretty clever to have Robert Englund, without makeup, portraying the bus driver at the very, very beginning of this movie. Freddy approaches these 3 kids. Like I said, it's 2 girls and 1 guy, and as he's approaching them, you suddenly hear an alarm going off, and you see a kid sit up in his bed. The kid who sat up in the bed is actually the same kid who was sitting in the back of that bus. That's our main character, and his name is Jesse. So now you just see a very tired Jesse at school. You see Jesse at home. It's basically movie filler leading up to the next dream that Jesse has. So the next time that we see Jesse have a nightmare, he gets up and he is wandering around in his house. He goes outside and he sees someone in the basement from behind putting something in a furnace down, like I said, he's down in the basement. So Jesse comes back in the house, goes around to the basement door, looks down there, and he sees somebody walking around. He sees the shadow of someone walking around. He tries to slam the door shut, but the person on the other side is trying to pull the door open. Jesse begins to yell for his father. He lets go of the door and he starts to run, and he bangs right into Freddy Krueger.
Dad?
Daddy can't help you now.
So Freddy then tells Jesse that he needs him, that he needs Jesse to kill for him. He says, "You have the body and I have the brains," and at that point, he pulls back his scalp to reveal his brain.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Jesse springs awake, he's covered in sweat, he had another nightmare. So the next thing we see is Jesse is trying to leave the house to go meet up with his love interest in the movie. Her name is Lisa. As he's trying to leave, they just bought this house. Oh, and by the way, the house that they bought was the same house that Nancy's family lived in the first original Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So when Jesse's trying to go down the stairs to leave to go meet up with Lisa, his father tells him, "I told you that I needed you to unpack that room," and he sends him back up to his room. While he's in his room, you see some of the most dated 80s nightmarish dancing that this kid's doing in his room, and he jumps up on his bed, he's got sunglasses on, he's got a little pop gun, and he's dancing around on top of his bed, turns around, and his Lisa's standing there watching him. This kid just made a complete fool of himself. So Lisa starts to help Jesse clean up his room, or unbox his room, as his father put it. And she goes in the closet to put away a sweater, and when she's up there, she finds an old diary. It's a red diary. It's button closed, but it's visibly covered in dust. They open it up, and they realize that it is Nancy's diary. So as they're reading through this diary, they realize that Nancy is in there writing about the guy with the claws on his hands. So Jesse is now realizing that Nancy also saw Fred Krueger in her dreams. So the next thing you know, Jesse's having yet another dream. This time he has a dream that he walks into a bar. The bar looks almost like, it looks like everybody's wearing leather and bondage. It's very strange situation, very odd atmosphere. So Jesse walks up to the bar and orders a beer. And when he's getting ready to drink that beer, from behind him comes his gym teacher. So, strangely enough, his gym teacher finds him in a bar in the middle of the night. Jesse doesn't have a shirt on. And what does the gym teacher make him do? The next scene it cuts away to is Jesse running laps in the high school gym. The gym teacher then tells Jesse that he's got to hit the showers, so Jesse goes and hits the showers. While Jesse's in the shower, the gym teacher is in a storage room, and a bunch of footballs and soccer balls and tennis balls start flying off the shelves at him. Eventually, he has his clothes ripped off, and he's drug into the shower by jump ropes. The jump ropes have him hanging by the faucets. And all of a sudden, a towel comes up and starts whipping him in his naked ass. This whole thing is very weird. So after this gym teacher's butt's been beaten red and bloody, the next thing you see is 4 claw marks appear on his back. I'll give you one guess at who that is. So now Jesse's standing in the shower, naked and wet, just saw his gym teacher get brutally murdered. Jesse is covered in blood. He looks down at his hand, and he's wearing Freddy Krueger's glove. So the next thing you hear is somebody knocking on the front door of Jesse's mom and dad's house. They open the door. There's 2 cops standing there with Jesse. They say, "Is this yours? We found him walking down the road naked. All they do is bring this kid home." What kind of town is this? So now Jesse goes over to see his friend Grady in the middle of the night. Somehow he gets into Grady's house, gets into Grady's bedroom, doesn't make a sound, doesn't wake anybody else. Apparently Grady's parents must just leave the front door unlocked. So he tells Grady that he needs to go to sleep. And he asks Grady to just watch him. If anything strange starts to happen, to wake him up. Just watch him, keep an eye on him, and keep him safe. You don't need me to tell you. You know that ain't happening. So Jesse is asleep in Grady's chair. He, of course, starts to have a nightmare. He sits up, and he realizes that Freddy Krueger's arm, his skin is starting to tear, and Freddy Krueger's arm is starting to come out of his arm. It's almost like Freddy Krueger has a Jesse suit on. He starts to tear through his skin. Grady wakes up and he sees this happening. This is happening in front of Grady. Jesse's skin rips apart. His chest tears open, and Freddy Krueger is literally coming out of Jesse. So while all this is happening, Grady is looking at this, he's watching this happen, and he's turning around and beating on his door. Then he looks back, and he starts beating on the door again. He's screaming like crazy, pounding on this door. Nobody's coming to help him, and the whole time, Freddy Krueger is pretty much just staring at him and smiling. And that is that. I'm not giving you any more spoilers for Freddy's Revenge. This movie is 35 years old now. If you haven't seen this movie yet, I would be surprised, but I certainly am not going to be the one to spoil it for you if you haven't. I thought that this movie was alright. I am not the biggest Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I really like the first one a lot. I love the original movie. I kind of actually like the remake as well, but all of the movies between them I'm not crazy about. I'm not a real big fan of Freddy Krueger being a smartass or sarcastic or being full of one-liners. This movie is before all of that happened. So this movie was tolerable for me. I actually kind of enjoyed parts of this movie. I thought the scene where Jesse was sleeping in Grady's chair and Freddy started to literally tear out of Jesse's body, I thought that was really cool. The practical effects are very cool here. They're very good here, I should say. I would say that this is probably one of the better Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Again, simply based on the fact that Freddy Krueger's not trying to be funny. I don't know about you, but I like my killers to be scary, not funny. Another thing that I will say about this movie is it is extremely dated. This movie is dripping with 80s. From the fashion to the music. I mean, granted, a lot of the movies that are made in the 80s, they're made in the 80s. So, of course, they're going to be a representation of the 80s. This movie is overly 80s. I grew up in the 80s. It almost makes me uncomfortable to know that people around me dressed like that in the 80s. All right, folks, that is it. That is my review for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. How did you like Freddy's Revenge? Where does this fall on your scale of Nightmare on Elm Street movies? Leave me some comments down below and we can talk about it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you really like this video, please subscribe to my channel. I would love for you to go on this journey with me. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, have a kick-ass day, and thank you for watching.